How do you like him now? He was the Milwaukee County Sheriff. Now he is a spokesman for America First Action and author of Cop Under Fire. Sheriff David Clarke. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So what are you doing now?
A lot of everything, but I'm having fun, and I get to go out and talk about the things that are important to me and unencumbered, you know, with the elected office things, certain restrictions that you have. It's going to be good. These things that I'm passionate about.
How hard was the decision for you to make to leave?
Oh, it was easy. You know,
Why?
Well, you know, nearly 40 years in law enforcement, 4 decades, and 15 of those as sheriff. You know, there's just, at some point you realize that it's somebody else's turn to do that. You don't own those seats, and there's more to life. There's life after. Mm-hmm. And so these opportunities presented themselves, and I said, I can't let this go by. I can't pass. So, can't you see I'm smiling more these days?
We wanted to talk to you about some things that are going on in the news as well. You have this host on ESPN who was calling the president a white supremacist. She tweeted about it and then kind of came back. She didn't apologize, but she basically said she's sorry for putting ESPN in the middle of all of this.
That's all she's sorry about. But you know what? I know her first name, Jamel. I don't watch, but I've seen her before. She's a backbencher, okay? And sometimes when you're in that situation, you do or say things to bring attention to yourself, to try to lift you up to where the stars are on that show, you know, on ESPN. You know, this term racism's thrown around so much, it doesn't even have any meaning anymore. It's been so diluted. Everybody's a bigot, everybody's a racist, everybody's a fascist, and it's like, you know, come on now. So when sports starts to seep into politics, it's disastrous. And you can see that because you hear idiotic statements from people in sports. I'll tell you what about ESPN. When Rush Limbaugh said something that people thought was provocative when he was talking about the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, he got fired.
Donovan McNabb.
He got fired. Kurt Schilling fired for saying some things.
On Twitter.
Right. So, you know, when you look at it, I'm not saying she should be fired. I think that's a situation for ESPN. But when they start covering for stuff like that, but then other people say things that aren't PC, all of a sudden, you know, they get
It just looks like they're choosing sides.
Sure. I'll
give you another example. Glenn Beck was on our couch when he was here, and he made a statement that about the president, and he thinks some of the things he did was racist. He since walked it back. There was an international firestorm with that comment. But yet this white supremacist comment comes out, and people just kind of glaze over it. And it took Sarah Huckabee Sanders to bring it up yesterday and say, I just think it's unacceptable.
Yeah, and there's some things, too, with the former President Barack Obama. People said it was kind of tame, but you could contort it into something, you know, racist or whatever you want to say. And then everybody from the left came down on that person. And
they should, though, because you shouldn't be calling the president that, as you shouldn't be calling this president that.
Well, but you know, there's a double standard on the left.
Sheriff, you know the president well. Is he a white supremacist? Do you think he's racist?
Furthest thing from it. All right, he's one of the most generous individuals I know, especially when it comes to the black community. I think it was in 1994. Don't hold me to the year. He received an award in New York City for his contributions to the black community. He was honored with Muhammad Ali the same night, Rosa Parks. Now all of a sudden he's a bigot. This is nonsense. This is the game that's played. To label these individuals, try to put them on their heels, to get them into denying, no, I'm not a racist. You know, when people say those things about, hey, you're this, you're that, I go, whatever. Let's have an intelligent conversation about things that matter. And you just push that stuff aside. And I think President Trump is doing an excellent job.
I mean, I'll just give you, I just got to name some high profile. I sat there with Darryl Strawberry yesterday. He goes, great man, great friend of mine, unbelievable. George Foreman, I got a chance to know him. I back him 110%. Mike Tyson, I've known him as a businessman, as a fighter. He's still been friendly to me even when I was down on my luck. I like the guy. Does that not matter?
It doesn't. As a matter of fact, you get in trouble if you say things like that, you know, in support of him. It's one of the things that I'm up against in terms of the left, because I do support this president for a lot of reasons. But in terms of his being, you know, as a person, no, he's not a racist. It's so far from the truth, it's unbelievable. But this is what we got to do, is get out there and defend it. And I think America knows. They know where his heart's at.
So let's, just to recap, sports television, just talk about sports.
That's it. That's why people tune in. They just want to be entertained with sports.
All right. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. Out at UC Berkeley tonight, Ben Shapiro, the conservative speaker, is going to be making a speech. And, you know, some have suggested they cancel classes because they're expecting trouble. That's the guy they're worried about right there.
He is scary.
So the worry is, Sheriff, that there have been other speakers out in California colleges where it has amped up to the point where there has been violence. And in sometimes the cops have just stood by and let them throw stuff.
You know, and it's a shame because you put these law enforcement officers out in that situation to defend life and property. And this is through no fault of the law enforcement officers, but it's through the fault of their leadership, you know, the administration, and then the university as well, that won't give them the resources to maintain law and order. When there's talk about suspected trouble, you know, they suspect trouble, it's being brought by the left, all right? And these goons with
Masks.
Antifa, whatever, until government shows the will, and Antifa knows this, they don't have the will to push back on us.
Government? Antifa?
Meaning, no, I'm talking about, when I say government, I'm talking about the university.
Okay.
And I'm talking about law enforcement. They know they don't have the will to push back against us, and as long as they know that, they're going to continue to push that line. So at some point, these goons, when they bring the violence, I'm going to be clear about that. Once they bring the violence, they need their ass kicked.
How about wearing masks? You're in charge. These guys come in with stocking masks, throwing bike racks through Starbucks windows. How is that allowed?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Some states have laws that prohibit that. At those type of events, you can't mask yourself. That's done out of cowardice. And of course, because they know they're going to bring trouble, they don't want to be identified. So you know what the intent is from the beginning. And so you have to have those resources and that plan, that strategy. Once the first bottle is thrown, the first brick is thrown, the first officer or citizen who's attending that event is injured, all bets are off. And then law enforcement has to use any and all reasonable force to protect life and property.
Shut it down. All right, Sheriff, wide-ranging conversation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great to see you.
It's always my pleasure.
Welcome to the civilian world.
He's smiling again. Thanks, sir.
All right, we have some more headlines for you. Vandals deface a statue of a man who wrote our national anthem. A monument in Baltimore honoring Francis Scott Key covered in spray paint with the words racist anthem and slave owner. The city's mayor calling it unacceptable, vowing to charge whoever is behind the stunt. This comes weeks after a Christopher Columbus statue was vandalized in Baltimore. After 9 years behind bars, O.J. Simpson might find it really hard to leave the prison. According to TMZ, Simpson's lawyers say that his future release will be bittersweet after becoming close friends with his fellow inmates and even being the commissioner of the softball league. O.J. was moved to his own cell for safety reasons after being granted parole in July. He's expected to be released early next month. A suspected burglar messes with the wrong grandpa during a standoff with police in Southern California. Listen to this.
I told him he's to get you out when I come back because you fixing to come off my roof. I'm coming up there. I'm coming to get you.
I love him. The man wouldn't get off the 83-year-old Wilford Burgess roof. And after 5 hours, Burgess had enough. He climbed up there on the roof, pushed the suspect off. Cops were waiting, and they put him in handcuffs. There he goes.